Hi, my name is Gibson and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a checklist for the anxious, preoccupied, attachment style individual when it comes to the dating phase of a relationship. So this is actually a comment on YouTube that somebody asked, and I thought this was such a fantastic idea. And what I'm going to do for you in this video is take you through a checklist of some really important things as the anxious, preoccupied individual to keep in mind and pay attention to and tune into as you are navigating the dating phase of a relationship. So if you're not familiar already, Dr. Susan Campbell talks about the 5 stages of a relationship. She talks about the honeymoon phase, the power struggle phase, the stability, commitment, and bliss phase. And I've separated this out into a 6th stage because the dating phase is a distinctly separate stage of a relationship from the honeymoon phase, in my opinion, and I think this really needs to be discussed and included. So I've created the 6 stages of a relationship, and inside of the Personal Development School, we have advanced attachment style courses that literally go into so much detail about all the different checklists of things that you have to keep in mind for each phase of a relationship, for each of the separate attachment styles specifically, as well as what you're likely to see from other attachment styles as you go through each of those different stages. So from dating all the way to bliss and all the stages in between. So if you want to do a deep dive and save a little bit of time and energy in the whole relationship dynamic, you can join the school and use the coupon code WITHYOU, all one word, and it gives you access to, for 3 months, 6 months, or 12-month bundles for a membership. It gives you access to all 35 courses, and we add 2 new ones every single month that have everything from those specific courses to reprogramming your subconscious mind, courses about emotional regulation, communication and conflict, releasing resentment, all sorts of things, boundaries, codependency, and enmeshment, all sorts of things that we really need to navigate our lives. So again, that coupon code is WITHYOU, all one word, and I will put a link in the description box below and a card on this video. So let's discuss this for a moment. So the dating stage of a relationship is one of the first and most interesting things is that different attachment styles tend to want the dating stage to last for different periods of time. So for example, the anxious preoccupied usually tends to, when left to their own devices, and not necessarily doing work or being aware of their attachment style, often wants the dating phase to last for 2 weeks before they're ready to dive into the honeymoon stage and make a commitment to somebody and sort of, move into the next stages of a relationship. Whereas your dismissive avoidant, and it can be 2 weeks or so, but it can also be all the way up to a month or 2 months. But usually they feel emotionally ready quite quickly if they feel like they have chemistry with a specific person. Whereas you would find the dismissive avoidant who might feel like they have lots of chemistry with a specific individual, and they can have a fully separate, they often want up to 6 months before diving into a relationship and making a commitment and then navigating and moving into the honeymoon phase as a result. So it's really interesting because we sort of operate in each of the different stages with our own different sets of time expectations, needs expectations, emotional expectations, all these different things. And if we don't have a framework to navigate that, relationships become even more challenging and difficult despite having different attachment styles already. It's like another layer. Since we don't have the blueprint for other people's expectations and understand the differences and nuances. So this is such an important topic. And as the anxious, preoccupied individual walks into a relationship, one of the first things you want to know is that the dating stage is the time that you are supposed to use for vetting somebody and assessing, does this person fit into my life? And am I a good fit for this person's life? Do we mesh? Because relationships have a major impact on our lives in general. People rub off on us and impact us dramatically, especially over time. If we're in a serious committed relationship, if we live together with somebody, certain qualities and characteristics of that person are going to rub off onto you and vice versa. And so we really have to take things into consideration when we make a big commitment. Instead of just jumping into relationships because we find somebody attractive and fun, there should be a lot more to it. So as we start, you can sort of get your pens and papers ready, but here's a checklist that I think the anxious preoccupied really wants to stay tuned in on and focused on as you go throughout this dynamic. So number 1, are you clear about what you want? Intentionality is everything when we start relationships. If we don't know what traits or qualities, morals and values, or what we want somebody else's future plans to be, to see if they line up with ours, if we don't know what we want, A, within ourselves, but B, from somebody else, it's like starting a business and not really having a plan. You're going to run into a lot more obstacles along the way. Obviously, it doesn't mean you can't do it and you can't make it work, but you're not setting yourself up to have the easiest time. You're going to learn a lot of things the hard way, right? So intentionality is key. Are you clear? And these things don't have to be things we hold a checklist to, and if the person doesn't fit into the checklist, it's make or break and it's very, very strict. It doesn't have to be like that. But we can have intentionality, and then if something doesn't fit in, we can ask ourselves, is this a solvable problem? Can we communicate through this? Am I willing to compromise on certain things? But we want an overall idea, because if we don't have a roadmap, it's like trying to start a business and not even knowing what business you want to start, right? It makes it really difficult. So, one other thing I want to say about this too is you don't have to bring these things up right away. You don't have to sit down on a first date and be like, here's my checklist. Do you have yours? These are things that you want to keep in the back of your mind, questions you want to position. Just like if you were going for a job interview, you want to understand, you're going to research about the company that you're hopefully going to get hired by. And you want to make sure that you're a fit for that company, right? And that this company is a fit for you, and that it represents the morals and values and environment and all these different things that you see yourself moving towards and being sort of synchronized with. Okay, so checklist number 1. Am I clear about what I want? And this includes traits, qualities, morals and values, future plans. There can be so many other things. Number 2, am I clear about what I don't want? AKA, what are my non-negotiables? Because a lot of times, especially for anxious, preoccupied, and fearful avoidance, if you don't have your non-negotiables ahead of time, often once you have feelings, I find anxious and fearfuls, especially if they lean anxious more than anybody else, justifying things that they know are not okay, but they justify from an emotional space because they didn't have these upfront conversations ahead of time. So this is very important. And this could be things like, is a non-negotiable, somebody doesn't want kids and I want kids. Is a non-negotiable, I have a certain framework of beliefs I have about spirituality or politics. And if somebody doesn't believe in something spiritual that I believe in, or doesn't have any spiritual connection or religious, whatever it might be, and for some people those aren't non-negotiables, and that's perfectly fine too. But you have to check in and ask yourself, and maybe a non-negotiable is somebody's cheated in all of their past relationships and they've never been faithful, and maybe that's a so take your time to really be clear about what I do want and what I don't want, okay? And this is so important for anxious, preoccupied individuals. Number 3, am I clear about my boundaries ahead of time with dating? So there's separate ways of positioning my boundaries in the honeymoon phase, power struggle phase, all these different phases, but am I clear in the dating phase of a relationship? So some examples of this could be, nobody will come back to my house for X amount of time. I don't want somebody inviting themselves over until I feel safe and comfortable and I know them well, whatever it might be. It also could be, I'm not going to ever put up with somebody speaking to me disrespectfully, or if somebody acts inappropriately while we're on a date, that's a boundary, and I will communicate it because I'm clear ahead of time with what's not okay with me. And sometimes you'll have to learn these things as you go. Sometimes you'll be like, wow, that person did this and that's not okay, and you'll realize after. But again, the more preparation you can make ahead of time for these things, the more you can check back in, the more smoothly things will go for you, okay? Number 4, this is a really important one. Am I evaluating if this person is a good fit for my life? Anxious, preoccupied spend a lot of time dating thinking, am I pleasing them? Are they liking me? Am I good enough? Am I going to be rejected? Is this going to work? Am I going to be abandoned? And we spend, as the anxious person, so much time focusing on how you're fitting into this person's life. And a big piece of your checklist needs to be, do I see this person fitting into the things that I've established ahead of time? These non-negotiables, these traits, qualities, boundaries, these things that we've set out ahead of time. So you can't just put them there and never look at them and then go into people pleasing. You have to come back to this checklist, check in with yourself, and make sure that this person is fitting into your life as well, okay? The next one, so we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, I think this is 5. Am I in balance with people pleasing? Okay. So I don't mean like, and am I abandoning myself anywhere? So I don't mean like, are you in a position where you're not checking if somebody's fitting into your life? I mean, like, are you actively people pleasing on dates? Are you denying your own thoughts and opinions to try to connect? Are you, paying for more things when that doesn't feel good for you? And it's okay if it does, but when it doesn't feel equal, and that's not okay by your boundaries. Are you letting somebody speak to you in a way that doesn't feel good and just, shrugging it off because you're afraid of having conflict or disconnecting? Are you people pleasing in any place? And this is really important to stay tuned into. And if so, these behaviors need to be corrected. So you can just create a strategy. If this happens again, what will I do next time? Or if this is bothering me, how will I go back and communicate it? Okay. Our next piece here is, am I abandoning myself anywhere? So look at your 7 areas of life. Sometimes anxious, preoccupied individuals, when they're really infatuated, will get swept away by a relationship, and then they can pigeonhole themselves by accident because they'll get so focused on the different parts of a relationship and all the different components. Like, I want to just be with the person 24/7 and please them and impress them, and they like me and this feels so good to love. And the neurochemistry of infatuation can be so powerful for an anxious, preoccupied individual. And so as a byproduct of that, sometimes the anxious individual will go, it's okay if I don't go to work tomorrow. It's okay if I just spend a whole bunch of money this month because we're dating a lot. And even though I don't have that money, I'll figure it out later. It's okay if I don't spend time with my friends. I'm starting a new relationship. It's fine. But sometimes over time, there's like justification after justification and then layer and layer. And all of a sudden, you get yourself into a position, and this is so important to recognize. You get yourself into a position where career's not going well because you've put that on the back burner for too long or too much. Finances are not in good shape. And then your mental, emotional well-being is completely dependent on this person because that person has become the center of your universe. And your relationships to friends and family, you don't see as much, you've kind of disconnected from because you're so infatuated and single focused on this individual. And this can happen as early as the dating phase. Yes, this can be even more so in the honeymoon phase. That's a topic for a different time. But these things can really, really have a strong impact. Maybe your spiritual self-care, maybe your mental, emotional self-care, your physical, right? Your physical health. So here's what the caveat is that then you can get into a position where you are suddenly abandoning yourself in these different areas of your life, not staying whole and balanced. And now this person you have more dependency on because the other areas of your life aren't going well, and this seems to be the happy area. And now this person has more power over your emotions, and it becomes a sort of vicious cycle where like this becomes the center of your universe because you abandon these things. And whenever we have that, we're more likely to have codependent habits. We're more likely to feel like we're kind of addicted to the relationship, like love addiction. And we're more likely to feel really, really down and really afraid of losing the person if we've lost so many other things, right? If we've lost part of our identity in other areas over time because we're so focused here. Then it's like if this person leaves us, it feels like so much of our identity happens to leave, and it feels like an identity crisis is taking place. And so that imbalance becomes a vicious cycle. It becomes, I forget about career and finances, I justify. Suddenly, I'm abandoning part of myself. I feel imbalanced. I don't feel good about these other areas of my life. I derive more of myself through the relationship. That creates more toxicity. If the person pulls away, it scares me more. I reach in more, and you get locked into that pattern. So there is still a part 2 of this checklist. I'm gonna put this into a part 2 of your checklist, just because I'm recognizing this video is already really long and I'm probably only like halfway through the checklist. So stay tuned for tomorrow when you will see the checklist for the anxious preoccupied dating part 2. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. It would mean so much to me, and I will see you in the next video.